Today's episode is brought to you by Trip Vanderwoodson, aka Aaron Tveit, the Broadway legend, and Loco Hottie. I made a delicious homemade juice with my juicer. Don't worry, it was a hand-me-down juicer from a friend, but she works great. And I put lemons, apples, and like a ginger root together, and then I throw in some turmeric and ice. Really good. And I think it's really healthy. I'm not sure if others, why wouldn't it be healthy? I'm just not a scientist, so I guess I can't say with certainty it's healthy, but it's really yummy. And anyway, that's what I'm drinking today. But hey guys, I am dressed like a politician for absolutely no reason. I was just feeling kind of fancy today and wanted to chat with y'all. Does anyone else feel like January was the longest month in human history? I swear it went on and on for 58 days, maybe more. I don't know why it was just the longest month in the world, but now that it's over, I can finally share with you about my social media fast, which took place in January, and kind of give you the rundown from my experience of giving up social media to a degree for an entire month. And I thought it'd be kind of maybe I'll put some good pointers, I guess, in there if anyone's considering doing something similar, but specifically to someone who uses social media as a part of my job and my daily life and my income and my business. It's always like a little caveat because I completely agree that social media is one of the things that can very easily distract and create downfall in our personal lives and in our entire society. So I'm all about skipping out on social media, fasting it, whatever. But I also, in the same breath, am the person who uses it literally daily for my business and has a business because of it. And I would not be where I am without the use of social media. So it's definitely one of those catch-22 situations where I'm very grateful for the good that it has brought for me and well aware that it might doom us all. So I'd love to share some thoughts about what this experience was like for me, what I did right, what I did very, very wrong, and what I will probably do going forward in the future, and just reevaluating my entire relationship to social media, especially in 2025. So I would love to chat with you. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to roll the theme song and we'll get to it. Have I introduced Numi on the show before? This is my big pile of anger and joy. This is Numi. Say hi, Numi. She said no. I love her so much. She's one of our 4 cats. Okay, so I thought it'd be helpful to kind of give a little context about why and what I did. Some of you might not even know. If you don't know, hi, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. I'm so happy you're here. So basically, our church was like, hey, we want to kick off the year with 28 days of prayer and fasting. And they've done this, I think, since they began, but we've only been going to that church for about a year anyway. So we were like, okay, cool. This is our first time doing this with the church and with our small group and everything. So I'm completely on board with it. I think it's an amazing idea for anyone to do, especially at the beginning of a year. Like, what a great time to say, okay, like we just wrapped up a year. We're full of gratitude. We're ready for the next thing. Why are we going to distract ourselves with social media, 24-hour news cycle, etc.? So they kind of encourage us all to do these bread journals, which are just these like Bible study devotionals, in the same, like kind of kick that off for the whole year, but, really launching that the same week of the new year. And the goal was to obviously like connect more with one another, decrease our screen time, and enjoy life once more. So that was kind of the instigator of like why this came up. I thought it started like right on January 1st. So I like kind of scheduled my social media posts that I needed to get out anyway for work at the end of December. And then January 1st started. So I was like, great, I'm ahead of the game. And I think that first Sunday was like January 4th or 5th. And they were like, okay, now we're starting our 28 days of prayer and fasting. And I was like, oh, I've already been fasting social media. So whoopsies, which isn't to toot my own horn. It's just to say that I got confused with the date. So I was kind of like planning everything in December and then fasting early January. So then that next week of January, once the fast officially started, I was realizing there were some things I didn't schedule out just yet. So I like gave myself a little like wiggle room to hop back in and schedule what I needed to before the month kicked off too much. So that's kind of what I did to prepare, right? I was like, okay, I know that social media is something I use in my business. I know that I want to post more on my personal page, specifically about the topics I talk about here, things that really matter to me, and kind of use it like as a ministry tool. Sounds weird because I post like clothes and, travel tips, but I also think those things are deeply rooted in joy and amazing things that are good and godly. So there's that, but there's also vanity. Like social media is just social media, whatever. So I was like, okay, I want to schedule posts in advance so that I can participate in this fast. When you schedule posts in advance, if you're not into social media, you're like, this episode's a snooze, feel free to skip. I'm sorry. But if you are and you understand what, you can kind of hop into Instagram, for example, and post something right away. You can post a reel, you can post a story. You can also roll things back into the Meta Business Suite. That is the overhead company that owns Instagram and Facebook, and you can schedule posts to go out on your behalf. So you're not sitting by your phone every time you want to put something out in the world. As a business owner myself, I find that extremely, extremely helpful, honestly. And so I use that tool when I'm like, hey, I want to, make sure I keep getting clients, make sure I'm getting work, but not have to jeopardize my own time and be stuck glued to my phone writing captions when I'm trying to like wrap up the day or enjoy dinner with my husband or go on a date night or something. So that's the system, right? We're going to post ahead of time, scheduling things out, writing captions, creating images, and let it go. When you do that, however, the engagement, as in the amount of likes, the amount of comments, the amount of people sharing things, tends to decrease a bit. I haven't noticed a huge decrease, but it's just like true that Instagram will not prioritize scheduled content in the algorithm as much as they would maybe a post where you're right there and you're responding to people right away. It's just one of those stupid things. And you might be like, well, what does that matter? Well, the engagement that you receive on a social media post will affect the amount of people and thus the amount of reach and thus the amount of conversion or the call to action. So for example, if I'm a wedding photographer, which I am, and I post a picture about, hey, my books are open for this year. If anyone wants to hire me as their wedding photographer, I've got 3 spots left. Here's the info. Here's how to book. Go ahead. And if I only get 2 views and the people who are not getting married or don't need a wedding photographer or whatever, then that post pretty much just falls on deaf ears. But is that okay to say? Is that culturally appropriate? No, I think it's fine. Not an ableist. Anyway, but if I post that same thing at a peak posting time and I'm right there, like stirring up the algorithm, commenting, responding to people, and Instagram sees that my account is super active and we're just going, they're going to push that out for more people to view. And then maybe instead of 2 likes and views, we're getting 2,000. And then of those 2,000, a handful of people see it, read it, connect with it. And they go, yes, I need to book with you, or I didn't know you existed, or now I'm going to look at your work or whatever. So that was a little too in the weeds, but you get the idea. And if that is like new information, if you're like, hey, I literally do not use Instagram or I don't have a business, there's no reason. That's the kind of stuff that I think about all the time because small business owners are constantly thinking like, how do we market not just for the people today, but our next customer? How do we get the word out? And everything is like kind of DIY these days. Like it's very grassrootsy. And Instagram and social media in general have provided that platform for free advertising. So anyway, that's too much. That's too much. Why are we talking about that? I was talking about it to say that's what I did to prepare for the fast. Is like scheduled the entire month of January's post out in advance, outlined other topics, content, and things I wanted to do later in the year, and got things rolling so that I could take a fast. Now, I didn't mess up. I'll just take ownership for it. I think I messed up. I was really committed to the fast at the beginning part because it was like the first 2 weeks or so. It was probably like 15, 16 days in a row where I was like, great, I'm not on social media. I deleted all the apps off my phone. Felt really good about it. But there's also the level of like, this is still work. And so I would hop on Instagram on my desktop computer, which you're way less likely to like scroll and waste time on, because I would have messages coming in from incoming clients and I wanted to check and make sure I responded and give them potential information so I don't lose out on a multi-$1,000 booking. And then I have a couple groups that I'm involved in on those apps as well for networking and meetups. And so I had to hop on a couple times to check out like, you know, when's the next meetup? Am I going to be able to make it? It's a networking event, like confirming, RSVPing, you know, making connections, whatever. And then the third thing that I kind of like, I guess, got distracted by with social media was I was teaching a class and had a couple like opportunities coming up that I needed to get the word out about. So I used my Instagram in conjunction with my email list to post about those things and make sure the tickets get sold for those classes and that the right people find out about them and make sure they're invited. So it's a hard thing, again, because I use it so much for my business that I definitely decreased the amount of like scrolling and screen time on the apps and tried just to use it for business. But then it didn't feel like I was really like fasting for the whole thing. You know what I mean? But over freaking all, the idea of social media is for entertainment, right? It's for community and entertainment, online friends, whatever. We all know what that has turned into, and it might not have the smoothest execution that it once was supposed to have. It now is, you know, a place to shop, a place to find ideas, a place to, make friends, but more likely you're going to have, you know, some severe comparison issues. You might get jealous. You might just look at people's highlight reels. You might also find people being very vulnerable and sharing a lot of information. And then, you know, some people believe them and other people don't. You might find it just completely disgusting with political vitriol and hatred toward each other. Social media is so many things, but I think it's important to remember, like, it was invented to entertain and connect. So when you fast it, you need to replace that entertainment and connection with something else. So these are the things that I pretty much did in replacement of social media for January. I learned how to sew. I learned how to use my sewing machine. I had a lesson with someone I was very excited about, and I had a couple sewing days. I made headbands. I mended some of my clothes, which I'm excited. Again, like I wouldn't have done that last year. I didn't know how to use a sewing machine. I didn't have a sewing machine last year. This is all new information. I started a brand new project with my sewing machine I'm very excited about. I went on a retreat with some of our friends. We went bowling with my father-in-law and his retired friends. We hosted our nieces and nephew for a sleepover, which is always super fun. We went to our friend's band's concert. Very fun. Good evening time. Had a sleepover with someone. That sounded... I wrote someone because I'd used friend 6 times before that. Had a sleepover with a friend of literal, like my girlfriend. I'm married. Oh, you get it. Okay. I don't need to specify things. I'm married to a man. I had a sleepover with my girlfriend, girls, bestie, whatever. Okay, you get the idea. I babysat for 2 different couples. I ate a new dish at a restaurant and then recreated the recipe at home. And it kind of became my fixation meal. And I had it 4 times in that week. It was crazy. Went to get cocktails with another friend for their birthday. I learned how to do gel manicures at home, which you can see right here. Wait, is it going to focus if you're watching on YouTube? Get it in focus. It won't. It's fine. We're back to it. I journaled more than I have in a very long time. I watched football. I watched the Ohio State team win the national championship. OSU. OHIO, baby. I learned about a topic pretty in depth. I listened to a couple podcasts, listened to a couple CEOs from a specific nonprofit discussing this topic, got involved and ended up signing a petition about that topic. I window shopped at the mall. I read my Bible much more than I have in a long time. Finished an audiobook from last year, worked out more than I have in a long time, started 2 new shows, Severance and Killing Eve, both amazing shows. I bought less and cleaned out my closet for winter. And I went to more social events like coffee with fellow creatives and a networking event for my industry. I outlined a class that I taught, as well as outlined content for YouTube for half of the year, which is kind of crazy. And I batch recorded long form videos just like this one. That's everything I did the first month of the year without social media. And that's not like work. That wasn't editing photos, responding to emails, sending out invoices and contracts, having discovery calls. That wasn't like the bulk of the work. That was the extra stuff, and that's not to, again, be like, wow, look how clean he is. Who cares? I'm just sharing that to say that I fasted social media very imperfectly, but even with intentionally saying I'm going to reduce the amount of social media involvement I have this month, that's the amount of stuff I got to do. Like, I'm impressed. And I'm grateful because it's a good reminder that, like, yes, even in the dead of winter, you can still find things to do that are not just sitting on your phone or watching movies the whole time, I didn't mention this, but my husband and I are trying to watch through all the Oscar Best Picture nominations, and we watched 3 of the Best Picture noms in the month of January. So it's like stuff like that you can like give yourself more intention about when you are using screen time, like watching a movie or being entertained. What kind of screen time? Like, what is it? Is it for a goal? Are you like, whatever. So I was just sharing that because I was really kind of encouraged. I felt like January was the longest thing ever. And I was getting a little discouraged because towards the end of it, kind of imperfectly, was fasting at that point. I was pretty much on social media the last week of the month and, had all the apps back on my phone because I was posting a little more frequently about a couple big opportunities for work. And I'm like, I kind of need to let this, get this out. And then that kind of became, I'm back to scrolling in the morning, and I was back to, letting it take up more time than it should have. So I was just like, okay, I'm doing this imperfectly, and I shouldn't have wasted that much time by the end of the month, but I'm pretty impressed by those first 3.5 weeks and the amount of sheer stuff life has to offer. Like, don't forget that life is here, like right here, not on the screen. Okay, so yes, that's kind of what happened. The goal was 28 days of prayer and fasting. I probably did 18 days of fasting pretty well. Where social media was just a desktop thing. And then those last 10, I probably fell off the wagon a bit. The prayer part, I definitely, engaged more in my Bible reading, my prayer, and my journaling than I have in a long time. But I don't think I did that very, as intentionally as I was trying to fast, if that makes sense. But it's another good reminder of like, hey, like, okay, one part of it you did decently well. Like, let's add that second part. But I also thought it'd be interesting to share a little data because, as I've shared already with you, my business and my work is right here online for a lot of it. And this is a big part of how I make money is posting on the Instagram to advertise and then convert that into a real life sale, a real life connection, a real life client, so this stuff does kind of matter, even though vanity metrics can be just that, be vain. But I thought it would be interesting if anyone's considering doing something similar and you also like use social media all the time, what happened. So I started the fast on Instagram having about 4,784 followers. Wait, is that right? 4,784. And now we're wrapping it up. So after about a month of not being on social media the way I have before, with just scheduled posts in advance, 4,811 followers. So that number grew quite a bit. And that's irrelevant, like, for most people. But for me, like, that quite a bit is quite a bit. That's almost 20 new followers. And they're like not robots. Like, I'm not paying for them. Like, they're actual people, potential clients, whatever. Okay. And then for YouTube, I think I crossed over 100 subscribers in the month of January. So now I'm at like 137, I believe, at the time of recording this video. So again, that was something kind of cool. Like, I'm not even that active on YouTube. I post my podcast videos right here once a week, and I'm picking it up with one extra vlog video a month. But that's it. Like, I don't really... my life isn't YouTube creation. I'm not at that point yet. And a lot of content creators, that is their life. And so I'm okay with things being slower if it's going to grow and increase. So I was a little pleasantly surprised that I think we crossed that 100 threshold in the month that I was fasting social media. And then if it matters, TikTok, we can get into TikTok. I guess, okay, we'll get into it right now briefly. I don't know. I don't know what I think about politics. I know what I think some days, but not all the time. But before our current president was inaugurated, we were all like, okay, TikTok's being banned. That stinks, but all right, it's a bipartisan agreement. Like both Republicans and Democrats were like, yeah, we should ban TikTok because of the data that China has because it exists. And before this man even got inaugurated into office, somehow he had the executive power to just shruggy the shoulders and go, no, I'm not going to enforce what was bipartisanly decided on, which violates a lot of what this government structure is supposed to be. Like, there should not be that much executive power in one person who was not even in office yet officially. I call BS. But anyway, TikTok is still here. And we, if you didn't know, we're actually TikTok famous. So my husband and I have 123.7 thousand followers on TikTok. It's a whole thing. We don't even post that frequently on there, but it is something that when we create a short form video, we'll, double post it from Reels to TikTok. I think we lost about 200 or 300 followers in January, but that's kind of normal because when you have such a high number, it's usually because a small niche selection of videos of yours went viral, and that's exactly what happened with us. We had some very specific videos about like DIYing a pool during COVID that went viral. And so those have like 6 and 7 million views back in 2020. And now it's 5 years later. And so basically if someone sees something we post now and they're like, why do I follow this person? They're talking about wedding photography now. They're talking about travels and I followed them for like home DIYs. They're going to unfollow. And it makes sense. So I never am like, oh, I'm losing followers. Like I genuinely don't care about the number on TikTok, but I do like that it is an option for us to create. And we have gotten a couple paychecks from TikTok. That's cool. So anyway, I'm like not going to throw it away tomorrow because, that could also and has been a form of income. So all right, now I'm just yapping. I'm getting off topic. Okay, so I was sharing that just to say that sometimes things do work counteractively and we're pushing and pushing and pushing and trying to be online and boost our engagement and boost our audience reach and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes you can say, hey, I actually stepped back for almost an entire month and my screen time was down the lowest it's been in a long time, probably over a year. My spiritual life was up. My hobbies were increased. My social time was increased. And still my business was flourishing and I was still somehow reaching new people while I was fasting social media. So take that for what it is. If you are thinking this is too hard to give up because I need it for my livelihood or I need it for my business, think again, I guess. Like plan ahead, be strategic, but it doesn't have to be an all-in or an all-out kind of thing. Okay. I couldn't let this episode end, though, without giving some more practicals about what I want to do going forward. I do not want to waste my life online. I just don't. And I know that's counterintuitive because you're listening to this online. You're probably, watching a video on YouTube or you're listening to me through your headphones in your car or you're in your AirPods. So I am literally online right now. But I think we're naive to think that we can live our lives without technology. If you want to be a monk or a really crunchy mama and do that, go for it. I give you all the luck in the world. I wish you the best. But I think we're naive to think that we can just function without social media. It's never going to be a part of our lives or our kids' lives. And it's just out. No, this is a part of our lives. But technology is neutral. It is just a thing. It's a tool. And we, the icky humans, can decide to make it amazing and help others flourish and have encouraging messages and, have long form videos that uplift people and give people ideas and tips on how to engage in things. Or we can let our sinfulness take over, our greed take over, our consumerism take over and use it for distraction and destruction. And as much as I can be a part of the opposite of that, I would like to, use it for the best that we can because it is a part of our lives. So, especially again, it is part of business. It is part of a job. If you work in any industry, in any field, chances are your business in some way uses social media or technology or both, They have a website, they have a Gmail, they're on Instagram, they're using it for marketing. You get the idea. So how do we engage with this going forward? How am I going to engage with this going forward? I think I am going to continue to schedule feed posts in advance. I just, as I'm recording this, got done with scheduling the entire next month's out on my professional page. I am also going to implement scheduling my feed posts in advance on my personal page. So if you follow India and stuff, I'm going to start doing that instead of just posting in the moment, because even though that's not work in the same way that my photography business is work, my personal page, I don't want it to take up that mental space in my brain. If I want it to still be fun and I want to still share little tidbits of my life on there, I don't want to be thinking about it constantly. You know what I mean? I still want it to have its place as this is something that fits into the margin of my life. It's not the focus of my life. And I think that's a really easy thing for influencers or people who even just use social media in a day-to-day thing to think about. I don't want to fixate on it anymore. So I'm also going to continue to batch create reels. You've probably heard me talk about this in a businessy tips podcast or something, but batch creation is a huge hack and a game changer if you're trying to get lots of different things done and you have a ADHD brain like myself. So I have batch created lots and lots of reels. I usually, though, tend to forget about them once I've created them. I forget to put them in the scheduler to post. I forget to post them when I'm I should make a reel. So, and then, months go by and, my hair changes or the content changes or what I said doesn't make any more sense. And then I just never post them. So I want to continue to batch create them, but also with the caveat of actually putting them out there once they're created. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. Okay. I want to continue working with brands to create specific content and treating that post and posting day as a part of my work schedule. So like I mentioned prior, if you want to get into those nitty gritty facts, you do need to kind of engage with your account, be online, be logged in, I think, to boost that reach when you are posting something. And so if I'm going to schedule something in advance, it can just go out whenever, but I'm going to make a quick note for 15 minutes. I'm going to literally schedule it in my Google Calendar, 15 minutes, social media time, to go in and just respond to comments, respond to DMs, and just check things out. And I think that combo of doing it from a desktop, treating it like work, and scheduling it on my calendar in advance will automatically start to form in my brain a new habit of we're not scrolling, we're not wasting time, we're not getting lost in TikTok sauce. We're just going to hop on here, do what we need to do for work, and then get off. I think that's a healthier relationship. I'm going to also implement no social media days at all, because it's easy to, let the old habit build up again, and then you're just checking it every time you wake up, and it's just frequent and constant. So I think I'm going to continue to delete the social media apps entirely off my phones, specifically for the weekends, like Friday through Sunday. And that way, when it's a weekday, Monday through Thursday, I can be on if I need to, or have it on my phone if I'm making a story. But then on the weekend, I'm not even tempted to check anything because it's truly just weekend time. That might change. I might revisit that as the wedding season picks up, because a lot of my weddings are on Saturdays and I love posting behind the scenes content. If vendors tag me, I want to make sure I'm resharing those things. But again, that's nitty gritty, and I'm allowed. I think we're allowed to, revisit things and make rules and guidelines that move with us. And I think often I get disappointed when I set a rule, then I fall short of it and go, nah, well, I guess it's just over now. I'm back to doom scrolling. And it's no, set the rule. And if it needs adjusted, adjust it. It's quite all right to make adjustments. It's our life after all. Okay. I'm going to try to schedule, wait, what? Oh, okay. I was repeating the last tip. Never mind. I was going to say, I'm going to try to start using activity association with the use of social media just for fun. Because that's the other thing is I don't know if I do, but I did like social media. I like watching silly TikToks. I like laughing at reels with my husband. We'll laugh at some stuff. I like watching other girls do their fit check videos and showing tips and tricks on the same content that I'm interested in, right? We all would be lying to ourselves. We're no, I don't actually like watching videos. You do. You literally do, or you wouldn't be watching this one. Come on. But I don't also want to just say like, okay, well then again, hands are off, like no rules, just do it whenever. I want to just continue to associate it with something. So for example, when I gotta go number 2, when I gotta poo, it's time to watch TikTok. It's time to take a little 5-minute breather in the bathroom, watch a few TikToks, and then I'm done. And when I'm done, I'm not on TikTok anymore. You know what I mean? Like giving myself like little windows to just have fun with social media again. My husband and I also lay in bed at the end of every night and he'll show me all the reels that he thought was funny that day. And we'll sit there and laugh. And like, that might not be the best thing to do at the end of the day, like fill your brain with more content. But for us, it's like it's not an everyday thing. It's like maybe every other day or once a week, we'll just sit there and like go through the things that we thought were funny and send the other person throughout the week. And that's okay. Like that bonding and that memory is something that we'll always have and we'll look back on. And we currently like, that's so fun. Like I love sitting down at the end of the day and just like laughing with you about content. Okay. Now the place I'm currently stuck at with social media in general, I have to admit, is Instagram stories. I'm a goofball on my Instagram stories. I love making them. They're so silly. And I feel like they're a great way I can connect with my clients and followers and friends. So I'm not quite sure because you can't like, schedule those in advance. And when I have something like a link to my website or an event coming up that I want to invite people to, or I don't know, just like something that you need that extra action, that like click a link or respond with the questions. I want to still be able to engage in that. I think what I'm just going to have to do is literally just, again, block that in my schedule and say, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, engage with Instagram on stories so that there's some boundaries to it. But what usually happens is I log on, I do a story, people start responding, I respond back. And then before I know it, 3 hours has gone by and I've gotten nothing done that day because I'm so like, I want to respond to everybody. Everyone's like a real person in my mind. And they are. Like I know most of my people that talk to me on the internet. So I'm like, I'm giving them the time of day. I want to send them a voice memo. I want to like respond to them. I want to help answer their question if I can. So it's kind of that weird balance of like doing a little less maybe, or just putting in that boundary of that time a little more succinctly. Obviously, as a business owner myself, social media is vital to my business, but I have to remind myself and you that the goal of all of this, I think, is to be able to build, sustain, run a business that can thrive without social media. What was the world like pre-social media? There were these same professions, a lot of them, these same jobs and industries, and they didn't have social media to get the word out. Like this is still new, and I'm trying to keep that in mind as well. It has been immensely helpful, and I would not be where I am without it, but it's still new, and it's not necessarily 1000% essential to conduct a business, on social media or with it. You can still have a thriving business without it. It would just be a lot harder, I would think, but it's still possible. And so I'm trying to kind of gear myself up to say, all right, how do I engage with this in a healthy way as a business owner so that if Instagram goes away tomorrow, or like we just experienced with TikTok, we don't own this stuff. Like if TikTok goes away tomorrow, and I have 120,000 people on there, it's like, how do I convert them into a different marketing funnel, into a different system so that I can still, earn their trust as a friend, follower, whatever. And if I have a service that they need, they can still, find and use that service and be a client of mine at one point if I want to. So all that to say, definitely a lot of things on my mind with social media going forward, moving into different strategies to kind of disengage with social media, especially in this world where like we don't own any of this. And I do believe it's a big distraction for a lot of people. And so I want to be more intentional about life in general. And if I'm contributing to the problem, it's hard to feel like I'm bringing up a solution. I was kind of really smart. I just said that. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm thinking about all this. It was a good month. I think I'm going to keep it going. I think I'm going to just try to act like every week I'm having this new relationship with it. I'm trying not to be on my phone that much. I'm trying to just make it business, not personal. And we'll see how this goes. I think it's going to be good. But yeah, if you ever have fasted social media, let me know how that's gone for you. If you have any questions about, more things or my experience with that 1 month run of kind of being really intentional about it, let me know. and get off your phones and go live your real life. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great year. Hopefully. My eye is twitching because it's already off to a rough start. But I love you guys and thank you and have a good day.